Hello, everybody. This is Michael from Spades Consulting. So, we are going to talk about, real quick, just one of the things that sucks about most of the modern workplaces. Now, given my apologies for it being so low light, but literally, I can't record anything better than this right now. So, this is what we're going to get into. How difficult is it, honestly, to work for most American employers? All right, I had the thought while getting set up this morning, like, you know what, honestly, it really is damn near impossible to work. Now, this is just general labor. This isn't even touching white collar, although it does dabble on the edge of the white collar world. Let's get into it. So, first and foremost, with the inflation, now given the ability to work with most people has been, kind of difficult. It's been definitely strained just at base because, given it ain't the 60s anymore. We don't have common ideas, common beliefs. And it's just like back when I was a kid, the main topics you weren't supposed to talk about were politics and religion, but now we just have more and more topics that you can't even touch, and we're not even going to get into the red pill and feminism and girl boss. We're not even going to touch that. What we're going to focus on is, with how bad the inflation is, with how high costs have gone, and the fact that wages have not kept up, you also have to deal with the fact that it's becoming increasingly toxic to deal with most of what would normally be your coworkers. You're looking at having to deal with people who are either stressed out and cracking, they're having emotional breaks, they're having all sorts of problems. You also have to deal with, the garden variety problems. But you also have to deal with people who are, whether it's legal or illegal, prescription or off the street, you got to deal with people who are increasingly using drugs to compensate for just how difficult life has become for the average person. Now, we have to also add on the other side of it. So, one thing that consistently happens, because increasingly more and more people have to work, 40 hours was enough, but people are working 50, 60, 70, 84. I maxed out at 84. I'm going to be honest with you, I couldn't keep it up for too long. 84 hours a week goes to a special level of soul crushing that, especially for blue collar, for labor work, you do not want to fuck around with that. All right, because every dollar you save, you'll end up paying in medical bills or paying other people to do the shit that you can't do anymore. You get 1 or 2 days off, you're cripplingly depressed, tired, all sorts of issues with that. You end up paying people to do your laundry, all right, to take your car to the mechanic, as if going to the mechanic isn't pricey enough now. So working more hours, kind of problematic. But what ends up happening is you end up with, because people don't have the money and the free time to go out, get the rocks off, have their fun on their own time, they end up turning work into their playground. Okay? This is where the toxic environment goes ballistic. Because what you end up dealing with is you're working for a company 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. You're grinding, and then eventually you start getting the feelings of loneliness, like there's got to be something more in life. And then eventually, oh, hey, there's a new girl. And then everybody starts chasing after the new girl, trying to get into her pants. Now, as if that isn't bad enough, because turning the workplace into your personal playground, of course, creates HR problems out the ass. But as if that wasn't bad enough, it gets worse when supervisors and management do it. This is where things get real. Because no matter what, and this is the thing, like, I have fought against this, like, in, my prior normal job working life, I have fought against this twice and lost. Okay? I have fought against it twice and lost, because what ends up happening is it's an ego boost for the girls to be able to get man in authority. All right. But then you know exactly what the girls are going to do. They're going to weaponize it. The other girls that they don't like, all of a sudden they become targets. The guys they don't like, all of a sudden they become targets. What ends up happening is, I mean, yeah, you do have supervisors and managers in title, okay. But it's no different than a Rhino Republican. In name only, but truth be told, they haven't been doing their jobs for God knows how long. The biggest problem happens when you end up, and it's even worse when it's family. The biggest problems happen when you have to deal with essentially a straw man supervisor or a straw man manager. And really what you have to deal with and who you have to please and keep happy is whoever they're fucking at the workplace. That becomes incredibly difficult, all right? Especially when you consider that, you know, some girls are easy to work with. Some are. Some are raging quantahas, all right, where no matter what, you could be good to them, you could be terrible to them, they hate you regardless, all right? It's difficult to deal with that situation. Now, based on how many times I've dealt with it or seen it, I'd imagine this is fairly common, and given I was the first one to, you know, acknowledge the argument that, yeah, no, you know, you're working constantly. Whether the money's good or not, you're working constantly. And it gets lonely, it gets boring, it gets lame. You need something to light a fire under your ass to keep you going. If you need something else to give you the motivation, just that little bit of oomph to keep showing up every day, I get it. The problem happens when it's subordinate and superior. That there's no good way for that to end. It never ends nicely. It never ends cleanly. Corporations that are on top of their shit, they'll move people to different shifts. They'll try to contain the issue. Corporations that are asleep at the wheel, management that's asleep in the wheel, HR that's asleep at the wheel, will try to reframe it as if, okay, so supervisor X or manager X is just trying to do their job and there's a hate mob against them. When really most of the workforce has to run around like Jews in Germany trying to escape the SS, trying to escape the Gestapo, because you constantly have the girl who's screwing the super or screwing the manager texting and ratting out everybody for every little thing. And then the supervisor instantly is like, okay, goes after those people, looks really good on his record. All right. The more bodies he has that he's written up or done or gotten fired, the better he looks. He looks like he's doing his job. It fits into the corporate demand perfectly, especially if your corporation or the company you work for has silly things like quotas for write-ups. Not exactly pretty out there, is it? Regardless, it creates the favoritism problem. It creates the enforcement issues. It creates more and more hostile work environments. And then you end up in situations where some people get to get away with anything they want. The girl, her friends, family, doesn't matter, get away with whatever the hell they want. And it all gets covered up. But anybody else tries to do anything that even comes close to the kind of shit that they've been allowed to get away with, you're going to the chopping block. You're literally getting walked to the corporate noose. All right? I ain't given. Okay, yeah, noose may be racially charged, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It is what it is. as things progress with this, management ends up spending more time covering their own ass, covering their own improprieties, that they do less and less of their job. Okay, they literally will spend hours of the day trying to cover up all of the issues, running paperwork through shredders, trying to bury anything that would make them look bad. Okay? You want to talk about unprofessional? That's unprofessional. All right? And believe me, I'm the kind of guy where I do, of course, I love to troll a little bit. I love to fuck with people's heads just a bit. I won't lie, I'm also guilty of taking advantage of a workplace and using it as my own little playground, but nothing that close. Nothing that severe. All right? You end up with such levels of favoritism, so much cover-ups. You end up with an entire field of people written up. The longer it goes on, the more toxicity builds with the normal workforce, the more problems you have. Okay? It just expands from there. And once management has done as much as humanly possible to cover up all of their shit and their subordinate shit and possibly their further subordinate shit, then they have to deal with the corporate bullshit. All right? It becomes problematic. And it's honestly a sign that the company is, if it's not close to collapsing through one means or another, then if it's not close to collapsing, at the very least, eventually corporate is going to have to ask the questions: why is production going down? What happened to the old workforce? Why is everybody quitting? Why is everybody doing things to get fired to try to collect? Why are people going out of their way to avoid this place? And it comes back down to, and what's even worse is once the message gets out, because once a company starts doing things like this, oh God, I can't even describe to you how hilarious it is that sometimes anybody who knew me from my working years, they have spread the message so thoroughly about some of these places that you have random people off the street. I mean, literally random people. You never met them. You don't know them. Who are like, I can't believe you put up with all that. You should sue. And it's like, honestly, I don't want the headache. I don't want the headache, and it happens too often that it doesn't matter to me anymore. Like, none of that matters to me anymore. The thing is, too, that company in particular, oh, God, I went above and beyond in ways that they have no idea. They have no idea about. I went above and beyond in ways that they have no idea about. The amount of people who were thinking about suing, and they probably would have won. And I was like, oh, God, honestly, if you do that, they're going to put so many people's balls in the vice grip, and it's not going to be management. It's going to be everybody else. That it's a thing, you could do it if you want to, but good luck. And I mean, that might not necessarily be what people want to hear. It's just like, people need to take these corporations and companies to task, and it's like, it's easier said than done. Lawsuits are expensive, and you know what the worst part is? If you still know people who work there and you do something like that, the first thing, because management obviously is already off the rails, the first thing that management is going to do is they are going to quietly not target all of those people that you knew and try to put them out of jobs. which makes the situation even fucking worse. Because now it's not just that you were thinking of, you maybe started the paperwork, but now there could be 6, 8, 10 different people who the company may have purged, even if it destroys their production numbers, even if they have terrible quarters. Management, in a lot of cases, they will do anything to cover their ass. They will do anything to silence people. And God knows the HR department is not your friend. It is not your friend. It is designed to be a drama factory. And, yeah. HR's sole job is to cover the company's ass, whether they're actually doing their job or not. Regardless. Management, the first rule of management: cover yourself and your underlings, make things look good. That's what the game is for management. They don't give a fuck what their people do. They don't give a fuck what they do, what their underlings do. They don't care. They just don't want to have paperwork for it. They don't want to have to explain themselves. And considering that management are the only people who have $100,000 a year plus salaries anymore, you can understand why. In addition to it, honestly, I'm kind of getting flashbacks and thinking back to the Fallout season on Prime. Fallout 1 or 2. Or, oh, god damn it. No, brain drain, brain fail. Meep, meep, meep. First season of Fallout on Prime, the ending. Management. And it's just like, honestly, these people, a lot of them, they're pompous, they're toxic, they have... The majority of managers I've seen in my lifetime have so little ability for self-reflection. They're reactive. They do what they think is right in the moment. They don't think about the past or the future, what the future consequences are, the actions they take. Honestly, I've seen a lot of bad examples. A lot of examples of bad management. But regardless, you guys have a good one. I'll see you next time. It is getting quite busy. Check out the Substack. Check back here for videos occasionally. Again, sorry about the failed lighting. And like, sub, share, do all the things. I will see you guys next time.